at 3:06. Okay, so the first item on our agenda was approval of the minutes of the special meeting held March 30th. Has everyone had a chance? Oh, Skip is joining. That's great news. Skip, it's
Hello,
great.
I'm sorry I'm late,
That's okay.
and I'm not gonna be able to do video, but I'm here, it's, audio.
That's perfect. We're happy to have you however you can participate. So glad you're here. We had just gotten started. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from our March 30th meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the March 30th meeting as presented.
Second.
Any discussion, any changes need to be made? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, any opposed? Okay, we will move on from there. The next item on the agenda is reviewing the investment policy statement. I did send out the most recent, which is really the same as the previous ones that we've been provided by PASI, and it just has a new date of August 27th. And as we know, we don't have a more recently signed investment policy statement later than 2014. So if we can approve this one, that would be great. Are there specific questions that haven't been answered regarding anything in the plan as presented?
I have none.
I don't know.
Okay, I guess we can make a motion to approve and
I'll make that motion.
authorize the adoption of our investment policy statement as presented by PASI. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any more discussion? Hearing
Just-
none, all
we
in
just wanna make
favor
sure-
of adopting this investment policy statement?
Aye.
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 We
Any
just want to make sure
opposed?
we get an executed copy on file.
We will do that. And the only question, I guess, is I believe that the signatory for the plan sponsor will be Tim Griswold. And so I will make sure that he has the policy to sign, and then Tom, Ron, one of you will then execute on your end, correct? As the investment advisor?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we can sign that and get it back to you for sure.
Perfect. Okay, I will make sure that happens very shortly. Like probably even if Tim's around, I can probably get it done this week.
Great.
I'll find a time on my schedule that meets up with his. Okay. Updates on the items that we had approved in our previous couple of meetings, on the fee stabilization, the plan expense account, notices to participants, meetings with participants. On the fee stabilization, and this is where I feel badly that Nicole's not here, because we have had some documents over the past couple of days that she had been involved with. Dan, do you want to just give us an update on where we are on that? The changes to the plan investments followed by the adjustment to the fee process for participants.
Definitely. So if you remember, geez, I'm getting the last 18 months kind of mixed up, but about, I'd say 8 months ago, we kind of changed the way that the plan was going to be essentially priced. So we changed all the investments around, well, not the investments, we changed the share class of the investments to predominantly iShare, institutional share funds that share no revenue. So we stripped out all the revenue sharing of those investments and then basically instituted an asset-based charge to every participant. So every participant in the plan basically pays the same asset-based charge. Like Gene said, it's essentially, fee levelization, if you will. Because we're not getting that revenue sharing through the funds anymore, that asset-based charge to participants, obviously we need to get that either. So we have some clients who actually just write us a check, the plan sponsor does, or some clients pass that fee on to participants to pay pro rata. Obviously, I think that was always going to be, your intention when you set the fee up that way. So what happens under this new arrangement is every quarter, our system essentially kicks off an invoice to the plan sponsor saying, here's our fee, tell us what to do, sweep from participant accounts or pay it or whatever. So that's happened the last 2 quarters. And again, because it was a new process, Nicole, obviously probably didn't realize that there was anything to do with it. We've had that discussion since, so I think she knows that's coming in. And I've also sent in paperwork to both Nicole and I think over to Tim now for signature, so we can just automate that process in the future so nobody has to tell us what to do with the fee. We're just going to automatically sweep it from participant accounts. But we do have 2 invoices currently outstanding because of that.
So for the rest of the committee, there was some confusion about how this was being done, and I will take responsibility for Nicole not realizing that that she would receive these invoices, but didn't realize that anything had to be done. She thought it was just an information piece, and so the participant, no one was actually billed for most of 2021. Is that right, Dan? Because we implemented this early in the year, towards the end of last year.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Nothing's been swept from participant accounts at all yet. So actually participants have only been paying their investment charges, and that's really it.
My understanding was there was some money to be taken. You have a credit account that you can offer to the committee to maybe, I'm not sure if the committee knew about that.
Yeah, so we talked about that at the last meeting, I think, and I think Gene just made mention of that, that, there was talk of, returning that money to participants because quite frankly, we didn't have anything to use it for. But now, you're right, Ron, there is about $6,600 in the plan's what we call a RISA bucket that we can use to essentially pay that invoice, if you would like.
Was that funded from forfeiture balances?
No, this was it was under the old pricing arrangement before
Okay.
we changed to this new approach where we were getting extra revenue that we were just passing back to the plan.
Yeah, if in essence, what you would be doing is you would be reallocating pro rata those excess earnings, but then you'd be taking away to pay this invoice. So you might as well just take it from just not have it taken from the participants until next quarter.
Exactly.
This is Rick speaking. I would recommend that we do go forward with what they're proposing here. It's administratively easier, and it's also not going to do any harm to any of the participants.
That was my thinking as well. So thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. And I had forgotten that we had that amount of money until this week when I had conversations, emails and conversations with Dan. So I would agree, and that process would leave about $1,000 in that fund that can be returned to either participants or offset the fees that are upcoming in the next quarter, right? Because I'm assuming that
Sorry, I was on mute there. Well, we're going to get that automated sweep set up. Hopefully, if we get the form back in time, we'll have that set up for Q3. So there wouldn't be any more invoices per se to Nicole.
Good.
Okay, so what we would suggest is that you use those funds to cover the previous 2 quarterly invoices, and then whatever remains in that account should be returned pro rata to the participants. And then the billing will commence. And when does that happen? At October 1st?
What's that? The
next billing, the next when will the participants see that come out of their accounts?
Yeah, it's typically a couple weeks after quarter end.
Okay.
3 to 4 weeks ish. Once we get that automated sweep set up, I can give you more of a definitive timeline.
Okay. And Tim, just a quick question for you. Did Nicole give you that paperwork?
Yeah, I have it. I have it here actually.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that on the front page, there's an annual record keeping fee payment option. And there are two choices. So it's revenue required when there is a shortfall, blank is checked. And some other check marks, and then the back is signed. So I guess it's fairly simple.
Yeah, I pre-filled it, so it's got everything in there that is required. So it's ready for signature.
Okay, we'll get that and return it.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Just make sure I have the proper, does this go back to you? Yeah, okay.
Yes, please.
And let me just make sure I've got the proper address. I better make a note of it just so I have the proper address.
Sure. It's Daniel
Yep,
Mattson, Mattson
yep,
at troprice.com.
okay.
And Tim, I did send you an email, I think yesterday afternoon, just so you would have my contact info. Not sure if that came through or not, but you can reply to that too.
Yeah, okay, it's up there, yeah. All right, we'll get that off.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And just one more thing. So to use the expense account to pay the invoice, excuse me, I will, need to work with Nicole on, obviously getting that instruction from her, but I can, work through her to get that done.
Okay. And Dan, would you copy me on that so that if she has questions, I know exactly how to address those?
Absolutely.
Okay. And just for clarity, Dan, you sent me a couple of communications one that you sent and one that you're proposing to send. The one that went out in November that was quite lengthy, the, plan investment disclosure from November of 2020. Is that the current pricing model, or was it proactive, or is another, and that goes out once a year, right?
That's the annual disclosure, and then it also has on the last 2 pages, we were able to kind of tuck in, all the investment changes, which is what happens because we didn't invoice, or excuse me, because we didn't charge participant accounts. There's nothing in there about the fee per se.
Okay.
So when we do that this year, we will obviously be including that fee on the annual disclosure.
And so are the will they know in advance of that fee coming out or after the fact?
No, it'll just be on the annual disclosure. It's, a fee change, fund change. Obviously, there's 30-day requirements, things like that. But the fee change will just get noted on the annual disclosure.
Okay. So that actually leads to the next item on the agenda. Unless there were any questions about that, any further on the fee changes.
I have none.
Okay. Communications with participants. So as Dan shared, they do send out that annual disclosure, which I found helpful to see, and it's good to know that goes out each year and how detailed it is. And how does that, do they get that emailed to them? Do they get an email saying the annual disclosure is available for people without email? Do they get a copy in the mail?
Yeah, it actually depends. Great question. It depends on the preference that the participant has set up, with us. People can have electronic, mail, etc.
Okay, so it depends on how what their preferences were. So anyone that you don't have an email for, most likely is send them a hard copy.
Most likely, yeah. And we always do post that at their website too, so any participant can access it as well.
Okay, perfect. That's good information to be able to remind people. Ron, Tom, do you want to share the communications you had with participants this spring and any planned communications going forward?
Well, I certainly can speak to that. And this is Tom Reinhard. Earlier in the year, we did have communication with the town and the school to try and set up participant meetings. What came of it was that we set up 2 days, 1 hour each for a group session for the town employees. We did want to do a one-on-one setup, but that didn't come to fruition. So we went with the group session. The first group session, unfortunately, nobody attended. The second group session on the second day on May 13th, 2 participants participated. So it wasn't well attended, and we would like to try and improve upon that attendance in some way. We'd like to discuss that. And then with the school, I was able to coordinate, or we were able to coordinate, with Holly and get some one-on-ones, and we met with 4 participants during those one-on-one sessions. So that's the recap. But I guess we would like to, figure out a way to communicate better or try to get better attendance, especially for the town side with the one-on-one. That I think that there was communication for the school side.
Yeah.
But any thoughts from the committee on some of that and how to do a better job?
Well, the fact that it's being offered, the fact that there's the opportunity made available and on site is really the primary goal from the committee's perspective, and the primary objective from the committee's perspective, what we have to accomplish from a fiduciary standpoint. So that's great. It's disappointing. It's disappointing on many levels, but I'm sure it's disappointing for you guys professionally not to have that much of an attendance. We appreciate that you're making yourselves available, but we can't make them attend, but we certainly can make sure that it's made available to them. So that's very good that it's.
And so some of that may be the market conditions. Nobody is worrying about their accounts and that sort of thing, so that could enter into the equation.
Well, I'd also asked, and I'm not sure how the communication was done. I mean, I don't know the operational side of how they were offered the meetings, but yes, as Rick said, they are being offered. It just maybe there's a better way to communicate it. Obviously, pre-pandemic, we had more success by being there in the town hall area, and people did show up where you could do group presentations and things like that. But again, I would just maybe we can look at the way it was disseminated to the folks.
So how was it disseminated this time?
It might be that if we talked it up a little bit ahead of time, I'd be willing to do that in town hall, and maybe Holly could over at the school, to actually try to speak to a number of participants and say, come on, this is your chance to learn more about it. And this is a good
we did
investment.
talk it up. We did talk it up over here, and
Yeah.
I was one of 4 or 2. So
I actually had an idea that I explored briefly. I had the opportunity to speak with the union president or one of the union reps at the school district over the weekend when we were having coffee before our strategic planning. And he told me that they do provide a quarterly newsletter to the union members, and maybe even not just the union members, but all of the possible union members at the school district, which would be the majority of the participants on the school district side. So, and he was open to us having, a little, couple paragraphs in that. So my thought was to actually provide him something that says, you know, here's where you're, because I'm not sure that a lot of them really understand even how their pension plan works, but I don't want to make that assumption, but providing a little bit of information and some form of contact if they are interested in talking about their investments or the plan in general might be helpful. So maybe I'll work with Tom and Ron on crafting some short informational piece, and how to reach out if they do have questions might be helpful.
I think we also have to be aware of, and maybe Dan could say again, is the idea that we are going to do this target date reset coming up, which my understanding was going to be all participants, correct, Dan?
Yes.
Right. So that's a pretty big. I mean, two things that come to mind. I mean, one, they're gonna notice the change because they're gonna see it. They're gonna see probably confirmations or some kind of something that's gonna tell them that money's moved. I have a feeling there, when my experience, when they see money moved and they don't know why, you get a landslide of calls and concerns. So we probably should think about the preparation of how we're going to communicate this drastic move, because there's a lot of money, a lot of participants that are going to be changed over.
Well, I can say as a town employee, I was one of the 2 that attended. It was at noon, which is lunchtime. A lot of people don't want to part with their lunch. I opted to attend because I thought it was worth it during my lunchtime. But I know in the past, it's always been in person, and it has been like at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's been more attended. And something like this fee schedule being changed, that the employees should have some more notice of that, and that they should be aware, and then maybe have a meeting and make them more aware that these are important changes, and if you want to know what it's about, you need to attend.
Are you guys doing any? What's the status for town employees for in-person meetings and things like that?
We've been doing in-person meetings.
Okay.
And we have a large meeting room, so we can easily spread out. We are wearing masks, whether you're vaccinated or not. That's now mandatory
Okay.
in the building.
My experience has told me that the one-on-ones where you're able to actually be there is much more effective than sign on to a Zoom or log into this or that. So maybe it's a combination of time, the proper time. Again, we can do sign-ups, but our policy is, we're heading in the direction of, isolated, on-site presence. So we would not be opposed to that.
So quick question, Dan, can you just give us the timeline for when this stable value fund change is planned for, so that we have a sense? I mean, I know that's coming up before the end of the year, so we want to probably try and get a meeting and some of these communications out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so the stable value put, if you will, is expiring or coming up, however you want to say it, on December 10th. So when that happens, nothing happens to participant accounts per se, right? No money's being moved. It's just kind of internally, something happening behind the scenes, so that we can now reset those dollars along with all the money that's in the other investments in the plan as well. So that happens on December 10th. So basically after December 10th, we can do this, quote unquote, plan reset into the retirement date funds. So I guess, we have to decide on when you guys actually want to do that reset. Because we know it comes up as of December 10th. My suggestion, and again, it's obviously got to figure out the communication and when you guys want to hold meetings with participants. But my suggestion would be we do like a 1/1, 2022 reset. We would have plenty of time to send out notices. We would send out our notices to participants about opting out of the process if they don't want to by, they have to go out 30 days ahead of time, et cetera. But that would be my suggestion anyway.
This is Rick speaking. I strongly recommend that we take that advice. I think 1/1 is the cleanest.
I totally agree. It's
Dan-
always cleanest to do it on a calendar basis.
So Dan, what you're saying is the put and the reset have not, or one has nothing to do with the other. You're just saying the put is done in December and then it's up to us when we want to do the reset.
Exactly.
But we can't do the reset until the put. So it's a precursor, not a forcer, I guess. So you can't do the reset until
Yes.
the put expires, but you don't have to do it immediately upon expiration.
Correct.
So the earliest the
No.
reset could occur would be December 10th, essentially. But that's kind of a silly time to do it. So.
And again, just remember we have to, notify participants 30 days ahead of time so they've got time to opt out and, all that.
And truthfully, we probably want to be letting them know sooner than that. With more time and time to set up a meeting, time to have a conversation about what that actually means and whether it makes sense for them to opt out or not.
Yeah, so the more time, the better, within reason. Again, I like the January 1st, not sooner than that. Unless somebody had a strong opinion that they wanted to do it later than that. For the benefit of the committee, what is happening is very on an industry basis. It's very commonsensical, and it's also using moving participants to the qualified investment, which is the target date fund based on each participant's respective age and extrapolated to their date of retirement. It's very sound investment. It's a very sound investment strategy. It's very justifiable. It's very defendable. I don't think anybody should be overly concerned that we are doing something that you would not done to your investments if you were not involved in this process, because I think it's very much in keeping with what most participants would want done. It's a bit, paternalistic in that we're doing this, but that's because the plan was originally set up prior to these investments getting the same amount of regulatory cover that they presently have as being set as a default investment election. So I think it's great that we are doing this on all levels. I think it's also wonderful that this will probably prompt some people who are paying attention to enter into conversations. And I think it's further another benchmark or stake in the sand that we can demonstrate we're doing something proactively to help the participants and safeguard their long-term retirement planning.
Agree.
Said another way, I think the sooner we do this that is administratively feasible, the better off the participants are, whether they are engaged or not engaged.
I totally agree with that, Rick. And, I like the 1/1 date just because, like you said, it is very clean and it does give us, a good 3+ months to get communications out and have people have an opportunity more than once, perhaps, to be made aware of what is happening, so that if they do have questions before you must opt in by or opt out by this date before it happens. So there's opportunities to provide that level of communication. And obviously T. Rowe Price, follows the rules of we must tell them 30 days in advance, but that doesn't mean we and our investment advisors, PASI, can't reach out to participants earlier than that and provide as much advance notice as possible.
Agreed. So do we need a motion made?
It probably makes sense to do that, just to have it in the minutes that we have agreed that the 1/1 is the effective date for this change, and that we will, I think that is probably the motion that we need.
Hey, Dan, is 1/1 a real date, or is it really 1/2? I mean, I don't know if that matters for the committee, but just throwing that out there. First business day or something.
Yeah, I'd have to double check with my operations team, but generally if we're doing like a fund change per se, and the effective date of the fund change is 1/1, it happens that night. So technically participants see it on 1/2. So if it follows that, which I'm assuming it does, it would happen on that day at close, and then participants would see it the next day.
So I will make a motion that the committee approve the wholesale reinvestment of participant plan assets to the plan's qualified default investment alternative effective 1/1 or thereabouts as soon as administratively feasible by T. Rowe Price. Does anyone second that?
I'll second it.
Okay.
And do you, what kind of paperwork do you need or signatures on that?
Yep. So as I mentioned on one of our previous calls, we just are literally rolling out this automated process as we speak. The form is being created as we speak, and I will have it. I had a call about it yesterday, and I will have that form by the end of this month, September. So we've got some time anyway, but I will have that form out to, I guess, Nicole and Jean. I can copy you in. Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
That's perfect.
As soon as I have it, and I'll have it all pre-filled and all that good stuff, but it will be soon.
Jean, I do think you want to call for a vote though on that, right?
Yes.
Yes, we're still having a discussion, but I just wanted to let them fill that in. Any questions or other discussion on this motion that's on the floor? Or on the table, I guess. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, that is great. Any other updates that either Ron, Tom, do you have any other updates you need to provide us from your end?
Well, I think we hit the highlights of what the agenda was. I know we were prepared to talk about anything the committee would like to see on the investment side. I spoke to Tom, seeing that in a few months that 99% of the assets will potentially go over to a age-appropriate target date managed by T. Rowe. I guess my question to the committee, would you like to see the strength and numbers of how T. Rowe manages those target dates? Because as some of you know, it's a very competitive marketplace out there. The T. Rowe is not the only one that manages target date funds. I think it's up to you as the committee to know the due diligence behind why you chose T. Rowe. It is sort of because you're with T. Rowe as a record keeper, we're beholden to using their target dates as opposed to Fidelity or Vanguard. So if you'd like, we can kind of walk you through a little bit or provide you with some of those details so you guys are comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think that's wholly appropriate.
Okay. So Tom, I think you have some stats. Let me just ask before would you like that just sort of sent out to each of you, or would you like us to present something right now?
I think both would be great, but this is Rick
Yeah.
speaking. I would
Oh,
love that.
I think if you have some that you could share now, that would be great.
Okay. Tom, you prepared for that?
Yeah, I have one page that I can show, and then there's an additional report that I can look at. But the first page, and how do I share?
It's a good question.
I
Let's
have
see here.
something
Oh,
about.
I think I got it. I think I got it.
Yep. There you go.
So this report, if everybody can see it, is from T. Rowe Price, but I think it lays out the strength of the performance of these target date funds. You can see on the left-hand side each target date fund and the date. And then in the middle, the green section, or at the top, we have the different 1, 3, and 5-year performance. And if you look down the 5-year performance, these are the percentile ranks of performance going down.
These are
for each of those.
fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. So vintages, you're seeing first percentile, second percentile, fourth, third, and so on and so forth. Very strong performance on a 5-year, 3-year, and 1-year basis. So I don't think that there's any concern that these funds over the long term perform very well through the market cycle.
For the committee's benefit, first is good. The lower, the better.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
It-
Rick.
And
And
it
as
shows you out of all their competitors too. So, if you just took the 2050 fund and the 5-year, you're 3 out of 153 other people that are doing the same thing. So it's pretty darn good.
a general rule of thumb is, you'd like to stay within the top third if you can. And you can see, I think all but, we don't see.
Yeah, they're standout in the top 25%. It looks like
Yeah, no,
pretty much
they're
every
really,
instant.
extremely well positioned here as far as risk reward goes. This is meaningful, by the way, for the committee because there's a tremendous amount of focus in this space in the investment universe. So, one would argue that to do well across this compared to this field, you're really looking at a fine performance relative to a type of investment strategy that is having a tremendous amount of focus placed on it by the investment community and by investors. So I think we can stand reasonably assured that we've got a very good, solid.
And he mentioned that too, Rick, and committee members, is because again, the selection of a target date, especially now with about potentially 99% of the assets going into it, is very important for you to do your due diligence. But again, you have to understand that T. Rowe's option is T. Rowe. I can't say choose the American funds target dates in this platform. So you got both things going for you. You happen to have a very, very strong outcome of your performance on that asset and a very good record keeper to boot. So you got the best of both worlds with this.
Well, Passy is directly responsible for that, correct?
Well, again, we landed at T. Rowe Price prior to Passy coming on board. One of the things I was going to mention to the committee that, whether Dan was on or not, is just to also benchmark the plan. It's your due diligence or our due diligence on your behalf is, to say, are we able to get the funds that we want? Is this truly open architecture? Is there something that they're prohibiting us getting because we're with T. Rowe? And the answer is somewhat, but again, we're very comfortable with the outcomes of this. If you were in the below the 50% quartile in every quarter over 1, 3, 5 years, I would say we don't have a choice but to leave T. Rowe because I can't get a different target date fund on their platform. So, but there's also that idea of, now that your fee levelization and there's a absolute cost to record keep this, 10 million, 9 million, $10 million plan with so many participants, how is T. Rowe priced? are they competitively priced from a record keeping standpoint in the marketplace against its peers? So yes, Rick, you know, Passy inherited the plan at T-Row. What we did was we cleaned up the fund list and put the slots in that we wanted under, you know, an open architecture platform. But we did not choose T-Row.
But you're not recommending that the committee leave T-Row price.
I am not. I'm recommending that, you know, again, this conversation is just more of due diligence. I would always benchmark the plan. I don't, you know, now that we're fee levelization, we absolutely know what the price of the cost of record keeping is. We know the cost of, we know the average expense of the funds. We got them in a you know, somewhat of an institutional class. So what we typically suggest is let's go out, let's make sure that the fund expenses are in line with the marketplace. Let's make sure that the record keeping costs are in line with the marketplace. And that's a simple process just to document that we did that due diligence. But no, I am not recommending at this point to make any changes to the record keeping platform, nor are we making any suggestions to the fund lineup at this point as well.
So should we, as a committee, formally request that you prepare that competitive analysis?
I think you should, yes.
Yeah, I would recommend that we do that to the committee, and I would further recommend that we have an annual meeting, correct?
We typically do, yes.
So you know, perhaps an annual meeting, perhaps the next annual meeting would be the opportune time for us to review that, unless, Ron, you think that it should be done in advance of that?
Tom, what was are we slotted for them in an annual at any time coming up?
Well, we did a review last September, and then we did a follow-up review in, I think, March, the last meeting. So perhaps we could slot them in for the next review.
Why don't we, yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why we can't, you know, I would say your review could be in the next, you know, the first quarter of 2022 to do sort of what I call the trustee meeting or the fiduciary meeting. But I think it's very simple to get the due diligence out of the way prior to that and just have a subcommittee or a fact finding, and just, you know, either set that up for a call, or we can pass out the results and then, you know, disseminate that and then decide if we want to convene on a discussion. I'm expecting that, you know, the pricing, oh, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, I think it's a good idea to do this. We're happy to do it. We can either wait for, you know, the first quarter meeting, or we can just have a separate meeting on this.
This is Rick. I'm comfortable with either or, given what we know about the plan and the quality of the investments. I think that we have luckily some luxury of being able to do this when it's convenient for everyone. So I could do it sooner or later, whatever the committee wants.
I'm good with either.
Thank you, Skip. I think we heard you. You're a little light, but I think you said that you could go either way.
Yeah, I said I'm flexible. I'm sorry. Is that better?
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Just making sure. I would agree. I think that we want it done, and I don't think we need to have another meeting prior to, I mean, we've pretty much agreed that we're going to have 2 meetings a year, one in the fall and one in the spring. That seems to be working for us at this point. So if we say we would like this to be part of our March 2022 meeting, and for you to perhaps provide the data ahead of that, if that makes sense, so that we have time to review it, so we can have have questions if we have them in advance, that might be helpful.
Sure. That's not a problem.
Does that make sense to others on the committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And just one thing I want to clarify on the retirement date funds. We do actually offer now other retirement date funds other than T-Row. Should you guys say, hey, clearly our screening is top, quartile, but if there's ever a point where you say, you know what, it's just not cutting the mustard anywhere, we do have other providers on our platform now. Ron was right. We used to kind of be, if you're with T-Row, you have T-Row retirement date funds, but now we do offer other fund families out there.
That's good to know, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
great.
would imagine if we did change that, though, there would be a pricing change to the record keeping.
I can't say that at this point, but
Okay.
there could be.
No, we're happy so far. We'll do our due diligence. Again, it's just fiduciary, 101 documentation, putting those things in as part of our checklist. So we'll get back to the committee on our progress and get you something in advance. And I'll have my office slot something for the first quarter of a sort of an annual trustee
Great.
meeting.
Great. Thank you for the advice.
Yes, agreed.
Pleasure. Well, I think Passy we really don't have anything more. We'll wait till the annual. Again, I think Tom's one slide, sort of says it all for now, but in our annual, we'll give you much deeper dive into all the investments.
Okay, so the real only outstanding item right now, I think, is communications to participants about this change and whether and how we as a committee and using Passy as our assistance in this communicate to the participants well in advance of the T. Rowe Price 30-day announcement of the change in the portfolios. So my thinking is that that I will work with Tom and Ron to develop some communications, and then we can have the committee review those offline and make suggestions and changes and get that in process over the next few weeks. Does that make sense to folks?
Makes sense to me. This is Rick speaking.
Me too.
Okay, well, I think that is really the main. Oh, sorry, Vicki, go ahead.
There's an application on our website that you would fill out.
Oh.
And
Not sure. I thought that was you talking, Vicki, but I think it was someone else in the background. So sorry.
Yes, I just muted.
I think other than selecting our next meeting date, that is really all we need to cover today. Does anyone, did I miss anything, or anyone have other business we need to discuss?
I have none.
I'm good.
So does this time frame, a Tuesday afternoon at 3, work for people? Is this where we want to think of for our next meeting in March?
Good for
Sure.
me, as long as we have, yeah.
For me, having it on my calendar way in advance is super helpful.
Totally agree.
So the third week in March, the Tuesday is the 22nd. So why don't we put that on our calendars for March 22nd at 3 p.m. And if we do it as a WebEx, we do. And if we do it in person, I guess we do that too. We'll play that one by ear.
My 2 cents, I love WebEx. It's fine with me. I think it's very effective and efficient, but I'll be in person if that's what the committee wants.
I'm good either way as well.
Okay, well, we'll play that one by ear. That's 6 months out, and who knows what but I agree. I think this is very effective and a good use of people's time, especially for those who have to drive an hour to get here.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Okay, well, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All
Hi.
right. And everyone who had to leave at 4, you're good to go.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Nice seeing you.
Bye.
Tim, you're around this week, right? For the rest of the week, if I work with Michelle to find a time to come by for the documents?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll get this one off today though, so that,
okay, and
okay.
I'll bring the other one by for you to sign.
okay, terrific.
All right, great.
Very good.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
Right out.
thank you. Bye-bye.